This story takes place around mid-2016, right in the heat of the whole killer clown trend. A lot of people have stories from this time, and mine isn't as scary as others I have read, but I felt like sharing it nonetheless. This was around fall break of 2016. My cousin and I were both in middle school, me in 8th, him in 7th, and I was staying over at his house one night during fall break, and we had decided to stay up late, as children do. There were quite a few people in the house that night. Me, my cousin, his 10-year-old brother, his 3-year-old sister, 3-month-old baby brother, his dad, and his stepmom. Let me try and explain the layout of the house and yard. They lived in a rather large double-wide trailer that they bought, and it was out on a flattened part, halfway up of a hill. Their driveway is a rather steep gravel slope that connected to the road at the bottom of the hill. Behind the house up the hill was nothing but woods. The nearest house was just slightly down the hill to the left of the road. That was our grandparents' house. With the layout set up, let me continue to the story. As I said, my cousin and I were the only ones still awake. We were watching TV, probably some sitcom on Nick at Night or something. We kept hearing noises in the woods behind the house. We could see into the woods from the window in the living room where we were sitting, but we didn't pay much attention to it since it was kind of windy. Plus, my uncle had lots of motion lights outside the house. They were set up in the back, facing the woods, near the side door, close to the driveway on the opposite side of the house, and also on the slightly elevated porch that overlooked the front yard and the road. So we weren't too worried about anyone or anything actually being outside, since anything out there would have triggered the lights. We had heard lots of stories and watched lots of YouTube videos about the whole killer clown thing, and to be honest, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just prank videos. Something made up just to get clickbait views. Plus, we live in a small, nothing town in northeast Tennessee, where everyone and their dog owned some sort of firearm. That included my uncle, a retired veteran. So we were never afraid of anyone dressing up as a clown, trying to jump out for a quick scare and a funny video reaction. So we were sitting on the couch watching the TV show, the only light being the TV and the dim light above the kitchen sink that was only a few feet behind the couch. Suddenly, the back motion detector light came on. We did notice, but didn't think anything of it. Maybe it just picked up some debris blowing past, or maybe some sort of small animal like a rabbit. The lights were set on 10-minute timers, so if it detected one movement, it would stay on, and would turn off after 10 minutes if no other movement was detected. After 10 minutes, they went back off, so we figured it probably was just an animal, which wasn't uncommon. After about 20 minutes, I went to the bathroom down the hall. I did my business and washed my hands. When I came back out, the motion light on the side of the house came on and shone through the thin blinds that were on the door. I swore I heard what sounded like footsteps on the gravel outside. Then the doorknob started rattling quickly like someone was trying to open it. I ran into the living room and got back in my spot on the couch. Luckily, the blinds were shut, so whatever it was didn't see me. I knew my cousin heard the same thing I did, because he was already up and halfway into his dad's room to wake him up. At that point, I saw the light from the front porch come on, so I got up to look out that window. By this point, my uncle had his pistol and flashlight and was out on the front porch looking for who or whatever it was. My cousin and I were behind him on the porch watching. He was looking around with the flashlight when he saw it. There at the bottom of the hill, in the ditch by the road, was a clown. It was a crappy costume, one from probably Walmart or Spirit Halloween. It just looked at us and waved. My uncle fired a warning shot, and the clown ran across the road and into the woods. My cousin and I could not sleep that night. My uncle stayed out on the porch for a few more hours to make sure no one came back. I remember him telling us not long after the shot was fired, he heard what sounded like a side-by-side starting up and driving away. Troublesome kids were always and still are an issue in that area. There are houses somewhat close to each other, but far enough that you couldn't see them. The only house we could see was our grandparents' house. I don't doubt it was just a high school kid playing a prank, just trying to scare whoever it was in the house. But years later, after reading some more experiences with these clowns, I saw how people's lives were actually being threatened. It still scares me to think of what he would have tried to do if he was able to get in the house. Okay, so this is my first poster here, and I'll make this short and enjoyable. I'm sure a large portion of us remember the 2016 clown sightings, or as I call it, the clown epidemic. Well, I live in North Carolina, and we had our fair share of the clown epidemic. A local Facebook group had posted a picture of a clown armed with a hatchet, never confirmed if it was fake or real, walking down my street, and a few other stories of people committing creepy and disturbing acts in their communities dressed as clowns. However, my experience was more than just an, "Oh my God, it's a clown," and then seeing them run away. I was 14 years old in 2016, and this took place in October, right around the corner from Halloween. Going over the memories in my head, it must not have been a school night, because I was staying up playing video games on my Xbox One in the dead of night, sitting in the darkness of my own room and only illuminated by the brightness of the video game on my television. My bed sits right up against a wall. The walls aren't terribly thick or thin, and just about an inch away from the foot of the bed is one of my bedroom windows. Beyond the window at the foot of the bed is my dresser, and on top of that, my TV. During a single-player video game, I heard a knock at the window near the foot of my bed. As a terrified 14-year-old would, I immediately turned off my TV and pulled the sheets over my head, hoping that whoever was outside my window would go away afterward. They did the opposite. The person outside my window knew someone was in there and awake at that time in the night, and my curtains were bunched up and not properly closed, allowing my TV to be seen from the outside. He continued knocking subtlety and even quietly laughing, akin to a clown's laugh, but much sinister given the circumstances. My mother and her boyfriend at the time were both heavy sleepers, which I often exploited to stay up late at night so they didn't hear anything that was going on. I wanted to yell out for help, yell for my mom to come to help me, but I was too scared to even move in my bed, much less make a peep out of my mouth. The person probably got bored and moved on because he stopped knocking on my window and laughing. I cautiously checked the window and there wasn't anyone there, but I was terrified and awake for the entire remainder of the night, way too paranoid to close my eyes and let my guard down. 2016 was a horrible year for me, to say the least. I wouldn't say I was, but I definitely did not fear death in the slightest. I probably wouldn't have done this if I was sound of mind, or I would have called the police. My car was in the shop for a couple of days, so I had to walk home from work one day. About a 6-mile walk if I take roads, but only a 3-mile walk if I walked along the railroad tracks, which I opted to do at the time. As I passed a heavily wooded road, I noticed I was being followed by, you guessed it, a guy in a clown costume, holding something that I couldn't tell if it was a baseball bat or a machete. I don't know if he knew I didn't notice him or something, but I started walking slower and he slowly caught up to me. When he was about 50 feet behind me, I put my backpack down, instantly turned around and started sprinting at him while screaming at the top of my lungs like an insane person. He screamed, ran away from me, and into the woods on the side. They didn't follow me after that. Moral of the story: act crazier than the person following you. When I was around 5 or 6 years old, my younger brother and I, who would have been about 4 at the time, were playing in our front yard as we often did. We lived in a very bad town in Southern California, a town that had a bad reputation and numerous tragedies, especially on the street we lived on. Suddenly, I heard laughter coming from across the street. I stopped what I was doing and looked across the street and saw a clown with a full clown suit and makeup standing on the upper balcony of our neighbor's house. The clown then took out an umbrella and floated down from the upper balcony and landed right in front of where my brother and I were playing. I remember the clown started talking to us, but I can't remember what he said. I just remember that he was very loud and would move his arms wildly when he talked. He then took out 2 large circus-style lollipops and handed one to each of us. The clown said something to us, then pulled the umbrella back out and floated back up onto the neighbor's balcony and went inside. I always chalked this up to something I imagined, since I was so young when it happened. I never mentioned it to anyone until I was 19. My brother and I were hanging out with some friends and sharing stories about strange experiences that we have had in each of our own lives. I decided to retell the clown story since it was a really strange experience, even if just something I made up in my own mind. I started to recall that day when all of a sudden my brother's jaw dropped to the floor. His eyes were the size of dinner plates, and he looked at me as if I had just pulled out his hair. He said that he remembered the clown and described details about the incident that I left out. I couldn't believe that he would even remember something like that. I was also in disbelief that it wasn't something that I just imagined. Now, this particular street had its fair share of strange and tragic occurrences, from murders, house fires, and overdoses. It was always considered a cursed street. Could we have imagined this? Or was it something that was conjured up from all the negative energy of that town and from that street? I'm going to share something with you that happened to me as a child. At the time, I was around 10 or 11, and my sister would have been 8 or 9. Long story short, our cousins, who we saw every weekend, had purchased a life-sized knitted clown doll from an op shop or thrift store, if you will. I know what you were thinking. Why on earth would anyone buy one of those? My thoughts exactly. Anyway, from the moment this clown arrived at their place, weird things started to happen. I'll give you an example. They would place the clown in their bedroom before turning in, and when they woke up, it would be sitting on the couch or in the kitchen. And this went on for some time. One night, a few months after they got the clown, myself and my sister had a sleepover at our cousin's place, and by this point we were all super scared of the clown and didn't want it to be anywhere near us. So for whatever reason, we locked it in the outdoor dog kennels that they had at their place. Sure enough, when we woke up the next morning, he was inside the house sitting on the couch. Although all our parents were skeptical, our uncle decided it would be best to just get rid of the clown for good. So, he put the clown on the back of his truck, ready to take a load of rubbish to the dump that afternoon. This is the part I really can't explain. Myself, my sister, and our 2 cousins were out the back of their place riding on the mini 4-wheelers they had, and we stopped to have a break and chat. Then out of literally nowhere, we see the clown running like it's human through the long grass maybe 50 meters away from us. Terrified is an understatement. After 10 seconds, it had disappeared past the tall grass and into the trees. We ran to our parents crying and tried to explain what we saw when everyone realized the clown wasn't on the back of our uncle's truck anymore. No one could understand, especially us 4 kids, after seeing what we saw. That was the last time we ever saw the clown. We went back to the long grass where we saw it, but nothing was there. We talk about it still to this day, and honestly, still can't believe it. This story sounds like a load of garbage, I know. But we know what we saw that day, and it's something I'll never get out of my head. I suppose the underlying question is, where did the clown go? And what had caused this to happen?